So for whatever reason, Xdefiant has essentially flopped. It's happened a few different times with these insider gaming articles where it says Ubisoft says that Xdefiant has fallen behind expectations. This is a month after they said Xdefiant is on borrowed time as player numbers decline. It says that their CEO Guillermo has confirmed that Xdefiant has fallen behind expectation amid company struggles. So obviously there's a lot of factors that go on to it. And to kind of throw it out there, I know that Xdefiant had a huge moment to hit the market about a year ago before MW3 dropped. While MW2 was essentially a garbage for Call of Duty, players were searching for something, and then they didn't release until people already got a taste of MW3, and a lot of people already decided that that's what they wanted to play because MW3 overall is a pretty good Call of Duty, which even though they're not directly competing with Call of Duty, they have to appeal to the Call of Duty player base if they want to grow their audience because there's so many live service games to choose from. Fortnite, Apex, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, whatever it is that essentially tries to keep a player and kind of monopolize their time on a video game, which inevitably leads to more microtransactions. So it says this week, the news that Xdefiant is struggling went somewhat under the radar following what is arguably one of Ubisoft's most challenging periods in recent memory. First, it was announced that Assassin's Creed Shadow was delayed until early 2025, which is crazy. We got to wait till like March or February. This game already looked pretty good. They already put out the trailers. Obviously, there's some arguments about DEI or woke or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's an Assassin's Creed game that probably would have had Assassin's Creed elements, and then it gets delayed. So they already kind of banked on selling this game, and then that's not going to make money. So they got to rely more heavily, obviously, on their titles that they do currently have, followed by several announcements at the company as a whole, including Ubisoft's board launching an investigation into the company's struggles. As part of these major announcements, Ubisoft held a trading call update, during which Guillermo answered questions about why the company had reduced its second quarter revenue expectations. It's obvious why you would reduce your expectations if you're not going to launch a game that you know would probably sell well. Regardless of all the drama surrounding Assassin's Creed, they've made like 20 of these and they sell well. So it would make sense that you probably lower your expectations if you're not going to sell that, right? Just to kind of set the expectations to be fair. You would move it to the appropriate quarter it's going to launch. So the Q2 guidance, is it only Star Wars Outlaws or is there something else underperforming in the portfolio? Outlaws kind of came out, it missed the mark. It's a misnomer because it's Outlaws. You're supposed to be able to do outlaw things, but you're really not able to in the game, which just doesn't resonate with people. Guillermo replied, "It mostly reflects the softer than expected sales for Star Wars Outlaws. We also had behind expectations for Xdefiant, so it's just not doing as well as it should. And this isn't because the game is bad. I think there's a lot of elements that go into it. One is the timing. It came out like 6-8 months too late. Obviously, they have to put out a finished product or else then you end up with struggles at launch where they become headaches that continue on for a while. And then the other part of it is MW3 ended up being good. If we had MW2 2.0, then this game would have also been able to excel because the game would have been bad and no one would have been playing COD. Even though this is kind of a little bit of a low for COD going into the next year, it still would have been far worse like it was last year with MW2. And then on top of that, they don't really appeal to the core audience of Call of Duty, even though they've offered no SBMM. They have a good variety of maps, relatively good gameplay, good movement. All those types of things are going for it. Their grind kind of sucks. I don't really like their camo grind or leveling grind, but that's an aside. But the really thing that they're missing for me, which I know people disagree on this, is the lack of streaks. And their game wasn't designed for them. They don't have the maps that are designed for streaks. They're not really set up for streaks. They kind of teased that they would add a nuke at some point. They're already in mid-season 2, so no nuke still added. So there's no dopamine that I would get from playing the game. And wins and carrying people to wins or fighting for wins isn't enough to keep me like engaged in the game beyond a few matches. It just doesn't work. And that's me personally. And I would imagine that if they're trying to go after the COD people, although there's people that are wholly against streaks, streaks would appeal to those people. It would probably piss off the Battlefield refugees or whatever other game people are playing that matches that arena 6v6 that they enjoy, which we'll give you a bit more information on in October. So next month, they'll kind of explain where they failed to miss and how they missed the mark. They continued to a much lesser extent with a limited impact was a lower expectation for Xdefiant. Guillermo's comments are a stark difference from the company's first quarter sales report, where he reported that the game was off to an encouraging start, and as we continue to grow the audience at a steady pace and plan quarterly roadmap for content will allow us to firmly establish the game over time. And this just hasn't happened, right? It's one thing to say, this is what we're going to work on, but then when it doesn't work, well, now they have to go back to the drawing board and figure out another plan, because the path they're on isn't going to work. Last month, Insider Gaming reported, which is the one I referenced earlier, reported that Xdefiant was at risk of losing its much needed post-launch support. So that means that basically after season 3, they'll be like, oh, we're not going to support it anymore. That's essentially where they were, which is pretty bad. If it couldn't be turned around by the end of season 3, as the game was struggling to see 20,000 concurrent players and an uptick in player-based spending. So the report and subsequent community conversations led to Xdefiant saying the game is absolutely not dying. Well, that's kind of like, it could be cope, right? Like if you only have 20,000 concurrent, which is pretty good for a lot of games, but from all your titles on various platforms, 20K isn't particularly good. Just for a comparison, COD, even when it sucks and when it's not doing good, it'll have 50,000 concurrent just on Steam. Obviously, you're not comparing the giant versus a free-to-play, but as a free-to-play game, it should be able to pull more players with their content. It's just not doing that. For whatever reason, it's not grabbing people. And I don't know if the niche was too small, if people are over the arena shooters in whole, or the market's too saturated that people aren't going to give up their game that they're addicted to play your game that they're not addicted to. Insider Gaming understands that the game fell below 200,000 daily active users. Obviously, if it's 20,000 per hour, those are obviously cycling throughout the day. And if you maintain 20,000 per hour, that'd be over 400,000. So it has dips and then it peaks up that 20,000 throughout August, but saw a 40% daily average uptick in daily active users throughout its daily reward program. So obviously they incentivize people to check on daily, which kind of forces people, even if they're not going to play the game, they log in real quick, press join, and then they leave to get their reward, and then that's it. So it kind of is a way to boost their numbers, which is kind of a little bit of a desperation thing there that they could sell when it comes time for October, right? While good on paper, player spending and continuous player engagement are the answer to prevent the game from going to life support. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Having someone log on daily isn't enough. You have to actually get the player to engage with the product. At this time of the writing, Xdefiant leadership still hopes that season 3 will be the start of bringing players and their wallets back. We'll see. Could be too little too late. MW3 will still exist in terms of the COD side, and Black Ops 6 will launch by this time. So then you're going to have even bigger competition with having 2 COD titles that people want to play versus that, and then whatever other games are on the market. Silver lining for Xdefiant, though, is a push to Steam, which it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So we've been told the game will come to platform, definite yet. Ubisoft recent announcement is the games will come into Steam on day 1 has understandably reignited the team push for it internally. So fingers crossed Xdefiant will make it to Steam instead of having used the Ubisoft launcher, which the Ubisoft launcher sucks. I mean, there it is. What are you guys' thoughts? Let me know in the comments. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.